Great perspective. Thank you. So yes, we're going to talk about the communication that leads to connection. And I've done some of this kind of stuff before. I'm going to take a little bit different approach. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge some people in the audience. Herb and Debbie Kelly, would you raise your hands? And also Rick and Heidi Granado, raise your hands. I go way back with them. I go way back with Venture Church when Sandy, that's my wife Sandy back there, we were missionaries from South Valley Church. If you remember, anybody remembers that, part of Venture now. And but we go back, 33 years ago I performed their wedding ceremony, and then it was about 50 years ago or something, we were together at a camp where these kids came. They got on fire for the Lord and they haven't looked back since. And Debbie Kelly is my chief intercessor. She prays for me and everything I do. And when I had a health issue last year, Herb and his Venture Men's group came to battle for me, and they prayed for me till I got through it. So thank you, Herb. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, guys. Okay, today I want to talk about the power struggle in a relationship. And what I mean by that is that there's a stage in marriage that's pretty recognizable. I put together my own version of that. You can see on the screen, and you also have one to take home with you there, a copy. But if you notice, we begin our relationship usually in a romantic stage. And what happens when, and I believe God's programmed our brains to recognize the person we fall in love with as the one He's chosen, because that's part of it. When you find that right person, your lower brain, talking about your brain stem and your limbic system, immediately releases those wonderful pleasure neurochemicals. And it might cause you to fall wildly, madly, and blindly in love. And what you don't realize is you've fallen in love with someone who has everything it takes to trigger your childhood wounds at the deepest level. And they don't know that, and you don't know that, but it's part of the divine collusion of two lower brains to get people together so that, not just so you can be in conflict, but so that conflict can open the door to healing and growth, growing parts of yourself you never developed growing up. That the relationship is the main source of healing. So in order to get there, we have to hit this power struggle. So anywhere within 2 months or 2 years, 18 months, right, max, really, maybe 2 years, you're just riding high because you're on drugs, literally. But when the drugs start to wear off, the rose-colored glasses are ripped off. You wake up with this person and you realize, what happened? What they do with my spouse, And now who is this person I'm living with? And you have conflict, and you enter what's called the power struggle stage. God has a very good purpose in that, is to get you not to commit, right? Because in that power struggle stage, 40-50% of the marriages end, and that's when they end. When they get the power struggle and they can't get through it. What tragedy of that is you're 30, 40 years old and you're divorced, you miss the rest of your life that you could have had if you made it through. And let me just summarize. Mature love is where you really have a partnership of mutual healing and growth. Because you learned how to dialogue, you learned how to use the tools to actually meet the needs at the deepest level of your partner. And then and what I find is couples that go through this process in my therapy practice, they've spent so much time fighting through the first years of their marriage. Then when they connect and everything, they're going, then they're looking for, what do we do? What do we do? We've got all this time on our hands. So they look for ways to serve the Lord in church and things. And see, it's true, all the energy that was spent in conflict is now channeled into world impact stage, where you have a mutual purpose together that you created, and you're really seeing your marriage as a vehicle to bring the kingdom of God to earth through your children. And if you've messed up in your marriage and your children have suffered because of it, not to fear. Why? Because in the end, what your children will look back and say, my parents weren't perfect, but they hung in there. And they worked it until they had a really close and connected relationship. So you end up sending your children out with a blueprint, not of a perfect marriage, but of a marriage that can work and glorify God, as we've been talking about. So That's the journey. Why do we have the power struggle? I want to just introduce you to one word today. Actually, I'm going to introduce you to the dialogue. Some of you have been through the couples dialogue. We're going to do that again, but from a little different perspective. The word is symbiosis. Emotional symbiosis. Symbiosis, when it comes to plants, is a good thing, because one plant's feeding off the other, and they just have a happy relationship mutually dependent on each other. But in relationships, emotional symbiosis is a bad thing. Emotional symbiosis is what we have in the romantic stage, when we fall in love with each other, and you think, my goodness, this is my one and only. This is the one that I've always dreamed about. My life is going to be so wonderful because I found this person. And what you're in is a state of symbiosis. What that means is you are seeing that person only from your reality, your perspective. And the phrase we use is, you and I are one, and I'm the one. And it's never about the other person in romantic stage. Don't fool yourself. It's all about what you... And so you have all these projections, a romantic fantasy about this person. And as soon as they start to show up a little differently, there's a trigger and a trauma that goes, wait a minute. And so they're actually another person. You know, Danny Silk said, you know, I'm in love with all of the parts of you that remind me of me. You and I are one. But no, this is another person. A good example is, and this is just a simple thing, but a couple had been married 3 months. And they came to counseling because they were in this conflict, they were in the power struggle. And he said, well, what's the problem? And he said, my wife doesn't want to watch football with me. And I said, is that right? Yeah, we always watch football. And she said, yeah, we were together with our friends. We did everything together. Yeah, we watched football. But I never really liked it. And I didn't grow up with it like you did. And so here's a young man who's actually traumatized because he thinks, I've got to spend the rest of my life with someone who doesn't want to watch football with me. Well, guess what? There's a lot of other things you're going to discover that are not what you projected. So that's why the power struggle. The power struggle is to get you to change and be what I thought you were, so that we can go back to romantic love. Do you think that's possible? Never possible, because you can't get someone to come back and be something they never were in the beginning. So, emotional symbiosis goes all the way back to those early years of connecting with our parents, where when we first we first come out of the womb, what is a baby doing? Screaming and hollering. Why? Connection. He lost that connection. He wants to recover that connection. And so whenever a child, you're growing up, and next week we're going to talk about how to identify the past challenges you had growing up and how they manifest in current needs today. We're going to do a special dialogue that really targets that and helps you identify that. So that's going to be a really good one. But for now, thinking about when a child feels disconnected, parents either being too intrusive or inconsistent and non-available. Abandoning, or the child feels abandoned or rejected. Controlled or rejected. Those are one of the two ways that happen where connection is lost. What happens when that happens? The child has anxiety and desire. Desire for what? Desire for that connection again. So what happens is then, in that place of pain, the child is in what we call a place of self-absorption. It's like, I remember going to the beach when I was a little kid. My parents would take us to this little lake that had a man-made beach. I loved it. I looked forward to it every time we went. One week they said, we're going to go Saturday. I was looking forward to it all week. And we got there as a 7-year-old. I'm 7 years old. We get to the lake, to the parking lot. We get out of the car, and somebody slams the door on my hand. As a 7-year-old, right? Well, at that moment, I'm not thinking about the beautiful sun, the sand, the beach, the candy snack shack. I'm not thinking of any of that. Why? Pain. Overwhelming pain. So what happens emotionally when we're triggered in that pain, we lose a sense of the otherness, and we're trapped in that self-absorbed state of our own pain. And that's when we criticize our partner. That's when we blame, and we see nothing's working out the way it should be from my reality. And so we're in self-absorption, and that's what we call, that comes out of what we call emotional symbiosis. Emotional symbiosis is when we can't have empathy because we can't see the other person. We can only see things from our point and our reality. And we assume everybody else sees it that way too. And so we lose empathy, and when you lose empathy, you objectify a person. And this is amazing that even a short time in marriage, a couple can feel disconnected, be polarized, and then they objectify each other. And when I objectify you, you're no longer human. So I can treat you any way I want. I can criticize you, I can berate you, I can walk out of the room when you're talking to me. I do all these horrible, abusive things in this person that I love. Why? Because you're no longer human. Loss of empathy. So we act like jerks, all right? So the emotional symbiosis is a universal disease. We all have. It's part of the, I think, fallen nature in that we can't see other people as they truly are. We make them up in our imagination as we want them to be or as we fear they are. They may not even be what we're fearing, but we believe that we are the way they see them. And when they object to that, we object to their objection, and then we try to annihilate and challenge it. And that's when the power struggle comes. And of course, there's my example of the newlywed husband there. All right, so what we want to do, in your handouts, you've got just a little description that says, how do we dissolve the symbiosis? How do we dissolve it? It's a process called differentiation. It's a process called differentiation where you use the tools to start to mirror and validate the other person's reality until the point where you can empathize with them. And when you do that, you dissolve symbiosis. And so we're going to use the couples dialogue. The couples dialogue has a series of sentence stems in it, prompts, that I want to encourage you, don't mess with them because they've been developed over 40 years and there's a reason they're written the way they are. And it's a therapeutic tool we use in therapy. But the beautiful thing is that we can use it as a tool in our marriage. So that's what we're going to do right now. Okay? So let me just look at your sheet. If you would go to the couples dialogue, look at it. I understand I have a pointer here, but it doesn't point on the screen. It's on the wall, but not on the screen. Okay. So notice how differentiation takes place with each of the parts of this dialogue. What is the first thing you do when you want to talk to your partner? Let's say you have a frustration you want to share, and we want to make a commitment to zero negativity. I'm not going to do that with criticism. I'm going to talk about myself. My frustration is something, when I came in last night and the dishes were left all over the counter, I felt angry. I felt like I'm the only one that cares about things like that. So you're talking about what you feel, and you're not saying, you slob, why don't you ever pick up? You're not attacking your partner, but you're talking about what you feel. So in order to do that, you ask for the appointment. Asking for the appointment establishes a boundary. And can we put that back up? Asking for the appointment already differentiates because you're acknowledging there's another person. There's a person that might not be ready to talk right now, even though you are. So then once you ask for the appointment, the person's ready. So you do it by saying, "Is this a good time?" And then the other person's ready. And then you take a few deep breaths, because when you breathe, your brain calms down. And the reason your brain calms down when you breathe is because brains love predictability. If you're going to say something to me and I'm not sure what it is, my brain can be really anxious and be triggered. But if I know, if I start breathing, my brain knows, hey, if I breathe out, guess what? I want to breathe in. So I'm focused on that real predictability. So my brain settles down and I'm calm. Then we look each other in the eyes, and then we say, you always start with an appreciation. One thing I appreciate about you is, and then the mirroring. Look at that mirroring, and I want you to memorize the mirroring part. You always say, let me see if I got you. If I got you, you said, and then you repeat it back. Word for word, paraphrase, whatever works for you. And then you ask the question, did I get it? Because normally couples hear 30% of what the other was saying because you're too busy listening to yourself, right? You're not listening to your partner. So you want to hear everything. So you say, did I get it? And then with that, so when you do that, what are you doing? You're differentiating. Differentiating starts when you start this process. New brain pathways are being built as you're doing this exercise. And suddenly you're already breaking up the symbiosis. And then when you say, is there more about that? That is like turning a switch in your brain on curiosity. And you may be in a fight, you may be in a conflict. You say, I'm not really curious about her. I don't even care. But if you say, is there more about that? Your intent, your brain and your heart will always follow your intentional actions. So if you say it, you'll turn the curiosity on. Your partner will feel it. They'll feel safe. They'll be able to talk more and get to the bottom of what's going on. So say that with me. Let me see if I got you. If I did, you said, say it.
Let me see if I got you.
Now say, did I get it? Now say, is there more about that? Very good. You're going to say that a lot in the next few minutes, all right? Okay, so then you share, and then we always go to 2 or 3 levels in your talking. When you're talking, now by the way, you can use the dialogue for anything. Sandy and I use it to talk about our business, to share, to discuss ideas, having someone mirror. I can come up with a wonderful idea that I think is great, and Sandy doesn't have to tell me what a stupid idea it is, because when I say it and she mirrors it back, I can see what a stupid idea is myself, right? So sometimes when you don't need to correct your partner, you just mirror them, and that really helps, okay? So go to 2 levels, and when I experience that, I feel. So you're always going to go to what happened and what I felt. What happened and what I felt. When I saw the dishes all over the sink and everything was messed, I felt angry. See, that's the way you want to do. You don't want to go blaming, just talk about yourself. And then, so do that with the appreciation, and then share the frustration. It was frustrating when. That's a good way to say it. And then, let me see if I got you, etc., etc. And then mirror that part, and then when that happened, I felt. Mirror that part. And that reminds me of when I was little. I want you to focus on those 3 things. Because here's the issue that triggered my frustration. Here's I'm in touch with the emotions that are mine. And now I'm beginning to see there's a connection that why I'm so upset about that is I have tremendous frustration from the past somewhere that's coming up. And so it's a lot bigger than my partner realizes. Right? And then those last 2 are good ones if you want to use them, but mainly the first 2. And then so after you've mirrored, then you summarize it, and then so once you feel completely heard, then you can validate. Validate is the second part. Validate says you make sense, and what makes sense is, and you tell your partner what makes sense. Validating is not agreeing. I don't have to agree with it to validate. What I'm saying is, you as my partner, you have this certain logic, inner logic. Now I see it. I see why I see why you would be upset, because when you came in, everything was messed up, and you felt like you're alone in this. No one else cares, and that reminds you when you were little that your siblings left all the cleanup and all the chores to you. And well, it makes sense that you would feel bad. See, so you're validating. Is that a good validation, you ask? And then they say yes or no, and you keep going. And then finally, empathy. That's where connection happens. I can imagine you not only feel angry, but I can imagine you feel all alone. Yeah. Were those the feelings? Yes. See? So that's how we get there. This tool, if we do it, will dissolve symbiosis and self-absorption and turn it into connection and feelings of full aliveness. It'll do it. So let's demonstrate it. Let's have a couple here who has a huge problem. You're just about to divorce. Come on up. No, just kidding. we want to demonstrate it with a couple who has just a little issue you want to talk about. Okay, that you could talk about. Just to demonstrate. It doesn't matter what we talk about. It's the process we want to emphasize in the demo. Who wants to volunteer? Usually extroverts marry introverts. And one partner said, let's go, and the other one said, no. Yeah. You're going to do it?
I'd like to.
Okay. You volunteered last time, right? You did last time, right? And I think we drug him up. No, we didn't. Okay, come on now. You want to do it? Okay. No pressure. Not everybody wants though. Going once, going twice?
Well, my wife's not here. I would do.
Oh, that would be an exercise in symbiosis. One side, you and I are one. Okay. Who else? What else? Boy, we got a lot of eager beavers. I've never seen it so. Going once, going twice. Okay, come on up. Get our veteran couple up here. It's not as scary as it looks, because I'm going to coach you. All right.
You guys are going to
Okay, so we're going to start. Just watch your sheet, or watch up here and watch the process, okay? Okay, so who has a frustration? Carla does.
I never have any frustration.
So what you want to do is you want to give your partner like a subject line in an email. Because remember, the brain loves to know what's coming. If I know what's coming, then I can be more present and prepared and less triggered. So give him is this a good time to share the frustration about?
So Graham, is this a good time to share a frustration about last night?
Sure. Okay. So first I'd like to share appreciation.
So first I'd like to share an appreciation. One thing I really appreciate about you is how you're always willing to listen when I bring something up.
So let me see if I got you. If I did, you said you really appreciated that I always listen if you bring something up. Did I get it?
Yes, you got it.
Is there more about that?
When I see that, I feel heard. And you know that's really important to me.
So let me see if I got it. If I did, you said when I listen to you, you feel heard. Did I get it?
That's right.
Is there more about that?
That's all right.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for listening. All right, so I just wanted to bring up that it was frustrating for me last night when I was trying to bring up a conversation. And I knew it was the kind of thing that, well, let's see. It was frustrating for me when I tried to bring up a conversation and I padded it a lot to try to get you to kind of listen to the whole thing and not interrupt. And that was really frustrating to me when you did, I don't know how to say this, when you jumped in and tried to answer it when I wasn't ready for that.
So let me see if I got you. If I did, what you said is that you brought up the subject last night and padded it with a lot of preparatory statements that was going to be really important for me to listen.
That's right.
Did I get it so far?
You got it.
Well, there's more because you said it. So not only, yeah. So after you said that and I agreed, then when you started to express what you wanted to talk about, I somehow interrupted with an answer.
Yeah, it wasn't quite an interruption, but I had really, well, you remember how I tried to really ask you to not give this answer.
So you asked me, let me see if I got it. If I did, you said you asked me to not give a specific answer.
Yes,
Did I get it?
you got it.
Is there more about that?
Oh, so when that happened, I felt like you weren't listening.
So let me see if I got it.
So rephrase that.
I felt unheard.
Instead of you.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. I felt unheard.
So let me see if I got it. If I did, you said, when I said what I said, it made you feel unheard. Did I get that right?
Exactly.
Is there more about that?
Yeah, that feeling of not being heard, really reminds me of how I felt like I had to be super careful of what I talked about, or when I was little, and I felt unheard a lot, like I had to fit in.
So let me see if I got it. If I did, you said that when I responded to you, you felt unheard, and that made you feel the way sometimes you felt as a child when you didn't feel heard and you had to be super careful about everything that you said. Did I get it?
Yes, that's right.
Wow. So is there more about that?
I'm trying to come up with what I'm really afraid of. I'm really afraid of I guess my voice just not mattering. I'm really afraid of not being able to say the things that I think are really important and
Okay.
things getting missed.
So let me see if I got it. If I did, you said what you're really afraid of is not having your voice matter. And there were a couple other phrases that you used there.
Just, important things going on said between us.
So let me see if I got it. That you're really afraid of important things not going on between us?
I said going unsaid.
Going unsaid.
Maybe
So
I
what
mean-
you're really afraid of is important things between us going unsaid.
Yes,
Did I get it?
you got it.
Is there more about that?
No, that's it.
So to summarize, what I heard you say is that it was really frustrating when there was something important that you wanted to talk about. You padded it with statements about how important it was for me to listen and not interrupt. And when I did speak up, you felt unheard. And so what you're really afraid of is, because that reminds you of not being unheard when you were a child. And so what you're really afraid of is important things between you and me not being talked about.
Yeah, I think so. And I'd say about, it reminds me of feeling corrected or feeling wrong when I was a kid, right?
So it reminds you of feeling corrected and being wrong when you were a kid. Did I get it?
Yeah, so my reaction sometimes is to shut down, and I really don't want to do that.
Your reaction is to shut down and you really don't want to do that. Do you feel like I understand what you're trying to say?
I really appreciate that.
Okay, so now, so let me just say, so mirroring is not necessarily understanding, it's just being a flat mirror. I'm just mirroring, I don't have to understand. Because if I'm trying to understand, I might be triggered, because I can't understand, right? I don't have to understand, just mirror. Now, and Graham did a beautiful job summarizing. Summary is not a memory contest, it's just the impressions I got.
Yes, it is.
You better get it right.
Let me tell you.
No, No, you just, because it's always the correction. Is that a good summary? Yes, and I also said this and this. And so you can always correct, you know, just bring more into it. Like, okay, so now validation says you matter. I mean, that matter. Validation says you matter. Validation says you make sense, and what makes sense is.
So that's my turn? Yeah. So you make sense. And what makes sense is that you tried hard to prevent something that you really didn't want to have happen. And it happened anyway. And so what you didn't want to have happen actually happened.
That's right.
Is that the validation that you need?
Yes.
So notice the first two are very logical. Mirroring is logic. It's what you said. Validation is very logical. You make sense. But the feelings now, you go to the feelings. It's the heart to heart. Wow. Wow, Carla, I can imagine what your feeling is.
So I can imagine that last night you felt alone and a little scared and probably really disappointed because you had tried to prevent it and it didn't. It happened anyway.
That's right.
Are those the feelings?
Those are the feelings.
Are there more feelings?
No, that's good.
Okay, stand up and give each other 1 minute. Everybody hug. Beautiful. Usually I get in on that hug, but I missed it that time. So now what I want you to do is, and by the way, the 1 minute full body hug is part of the therapy. 1 minute. After 20 seconds, after 20 seconds, roughly 20 seconds, there's this trigger of your lower brain triggering oxytocin. You start feeling closer. In 20 more seconds, there's another trigger. So it's free drugs, folks. So the 1 minute full body hug, very important part at the end. Now, what I said about empathy, when you're not empathetic, you're objectifying. The person's not a human being. You can treat them any way you want. The other part is our brain. When we're empathetic, there's no way you can abuse someone that you're empathetic with. It's impossible. So if you can get to empathy in your relationship, it dissolves all the symbiosis, the conflict, and restores connection. And that's our goal. So try it with your partners. Take the next 20 minutes, 10 minutes each way. Go as far as you can. And but I want you to pull your chairs around eyeball to eyeball, knee to knee. Okay, so that you're just looking directly at each other if you do that. And don't forget to start with the appointment. Is this a good time to share a frustration? And once you finish, reverse it. At a 10-minute mark, I'll give you the signal to reverse it if you haven't. Okay, let's make it a short minute. That's good. You can finish at home. We're always on a time clock here, class. Okay, so now let me encourage you. This came up over and over again. Let me encourage you. This is a tool that you learn as an exercise, as a drill, to build new brain pathways. Did you hear that? Building new brain pathways. You now have new brain pathways you didn't have before. And a measure of differentiation has already taken place just because you did it one time. But you need to do it. You have to practice it and practice it. Sandy and I, when we first started, we set a goal, 15 minutes each evening. Sometimes it would turn out to be more. But we started to practice. And here's why. You know, when you get in a conflict, it's real difficult to say, can we sit down and do it? Do it if you can. But usually one partner's so mad you're not going to do that, right? But you can come back to it, and it's like if you were practicing basketball, and I were teaching you Stephen Curry's three-point shot. I can't do it, but I can teach it to you, right? But I have you have the talent, so I have you do it 100 times. Now come over to this angle and step back and do it 100 times. And then take a break. Do it 100 more times. And so you do it to where the muscle memory's there, the brain pathways are there. But that's not real life. Real life happens when the whistle blows, and the ball's tipped, and the game's on. But in the game, when the opportunity comes, you step back and you do it just naturally. It goes right through, right? Over and over again. Why? Because of the brain pathways, the muscle memory. So if you do this and you practice it and practice it and practice it, you'll notice that sometimes when you get into a conflict, your brain pathway will go, I need to listen, not talk right now. You don't have to be told, because your brain just goes that way. So that's why practice. So what I want you to do is go around in your group right now, table leaders, lead them along to just share one takeaway. Go around and share one takeaway you got from doing the dialogue. Go ahead, go for it. Okay, so let's close our time together. Hopefully you're not. I didn't cut you off in the middle of a conversation, but let's take a moment to just maybe hear one or two things that was a highlight at your table that you just want to share. Just a couple of people to share with everybody. Yes.
Yes, one of the things you talked about is you don't apply it often. You need to apply this on a regular basis.
Yeah. So yes, I have a blog on my website is chuckstarnes.com. If you want to get more, you can go there. There's a lot of resources there. And one of the blogs is why do the best relationship tools on the planet, why don't they work? They don't work. Why? Because I don't work them. You know, people pay a lot of money and come to therapy and they get the tools, and then they call me 6 weeks later, didn't work for us. Right? Well, the process works, but we have to work it, right? So practice, practice, practice. Now, next week, what we're going to do is we're going to have a tool called the Early Challenge Dialogue. And the Early Challenge Dialogue is going to give a little questionnaire, a little exercise where you go back and you identify what your early challenge was out of a list. For all you people who are afraid of that kind of thing, there's a multiple choice, right? And then you're also going to talk about how you survived childhood. What's some of the ways that are now manifesting in your relationship today, how you survived. And then how those needs, those challenges are now manifesting in needs in your current relationship. And that's going to be really helpful because your partner's going to see some of the things you need that go really deep and go way back. And so it's a dialogue. So practice a lot this week because you're going to need that skill to go to this next level in the dialogue process, okay?